Our next performance, in the strong sense, I think, right, is from July Cole, who has an MS in Environmental Studies and an MFA in Poetry, who lives and works on the Oakland waterfront, studies the ethics and poetics of human-non-human interface, and pursues the reversal of manifest destiny. July is a graduate student in the Environmental Science Policy and Management Department at UC Berkeley.
No.
Oh, you're not?
No.
Okay. I lied.
Thank you. We get a little sound hook up here.
Speaking by Simon Ortiz. I take him outside under the trees, have him stand on the ground. We listen to the crickets, cicadas, million-years-old sound. Ants come by us. I tell them, "This is he, my son. This boy is looking at you. I am speaking for him." The crickets, cicadas, the ants, the millions of years are watching us. My son murmurs infant words, speaking. Small laughter bubbles from him. Tree leaves tremble. They listen to this boy speaking for me.
The world is full of birds. All kinds of animals, definitely birds. I would like to invite them into this space in any way that we could. If we were really lucky, one might fly in the window. We do a lot of things with them. We say with them, a lot of it is to them. As with all animals, we watch birds, we count them, we can kill and eat them, we imitate their sound and their movement, we put them in poems and on flags. Birds are a favorite symbol within American nationalism, within Judeo-Christian religious imagery, and in various realms of European-derived poetic and imaginative spaces. So many animals are. And this love of them as symbols seems not to conflict at all with their individual abuse or their mass extermination. Passenger pigeons are the iconic bird genocide at the hands of settlers pushing west, building the United States. There's also bison to get out of the bird realm, and beaver, as we heard about before. The poet Simon Ortiz in the 70s went on a trip to trace part of another genocide that I think can't be separated from these animal ones, the continuing human genocide of indigenous people at the hands of the same American projects. The Sand Creek Massacre, which is November 29th, 1864, a massacre of peacefully encamped Southern Cheyenne and Arapaho people in southern Colorado. 133 died. In the book, From Sand Creek, Ortiz gives an account of where he went and what he saw. He's an Acoma poet and a member of what's often been called the Native American literary renaissance of the last 40 or 50 years. On his way to Sand Creek, to the ground of Sand Creek, he encountered a magpie.
Words stumble on October stories. The abrupt wind throttled on fences, barn slats, spikes, thudding, bad cast iron. A last magpie nods, an ancient bitter nod. Strangers, they accept us after all, as afternoon travelers, our mission unknown to them. The magpie is determined to freeze.
This is the bird that started me thinking about the ethics and symbols in the poetry of Simon Ortiz. This magpie really matters in this poem. It lives in the poem, and it radiates meaning, relationship, and understanding from its place in the poem's heart. it has all the status that a symbol could have in a poem, but it doesn't work in a way that we often see symbols working. It doesn't stand for anything other than itself. To quote Paula Gunn Allen, who, like Ortiz, is both a poet and a critic and a founding luminary of American Indian literary nationalism, talking about this kind of symbolism in her work, The Sacred Hoop. It's not symbolic in the usual sense. The four mountains in the mountain chant do not stand for something else. They are those exact mountains. So these symbols don't transport the content. They don't transport the reader, the listener, or the poet to a realm of allegory, ideals, or abstraction. They don't stand for anything other than themselves. Rather than pointing, they express themselves. They shine, sing, or radiate. This is different enough, and not only in the agency accorded to the symbol, that I want to call it something other than symbolism. I'm still working with this term, but I've been describing it as invitational animism. One more poem.
Flicker flies by. His ochre wing is tied to prayer sticks. Pray for mountains, the cold, strong shelter. Sun helps to see where Arkansas River ripples over pebbles. Glacial stone moves slowly. It will take a while. A sandbank cuts sharply down to a poplar log, buried in damp sand. Shadow lengths tell me it is afternoon. There are tracks at river's edge, raccoon, coyote, deer, crow, and now my own. My sight follows the river upstream until it bends. Beyond the bend is more river, and soon the mountains we shall arrive to see. Soon.
All these birds that we're listening to are recorded in northern Arizona and southern Colorado, mountain and foothill territory. They're birds you might hear at Sand Creek. Just by the way. So here are some proposals I have about this other kind of symbolism, about this invitational animism, as I'm calling it. And these are supported with quotes from Simon Ortiz's own essay, Song / Poetry and Language, Expression and Perception. One is that language is perception of experience as well as expression. Ortiz says, song at the very beginning was experience. I should also note that for him, song and poem, singer and poet are interchangeable. Song at the very beginning was experience. There was no division between expression and experience. Even now, I don't think there is much of a division, except arbitrarily. The meaning that comes from the song as expression and perception comes out of and is what the song is. Again, how the symbol acts within this matrix of expression and perception. The symbol sits at a point of tangency, I think, or intersection between human language and other language, the language, whatever you would call the system of significance the symbol might hold for itself. This point I call a translation point. By accessing this point, the poet-singer can link language to reality in ways that are appropriate to that symbol. Ortiz's magpie and other inhabitants of From Sand Creek sit at points of tangency to the larger history of the land, including the Sand Creek Massacre. He says, the song as expression is an opening from the inside of yourself to outside, and from outside of yourself to inside, but not in the sense that there are separate states of yourself. It's a joining and an opening together. Song is the experience of that opening, or road if you prefer, and there's no separation of parts, no division between that within you and that without you. Finally, mutuality. The light and sound involved in the perception expression for the poet-singer become part of a mutual or collaborative engagement with the radiations of the symbol. Poetic inhabitation becomes co-inhabitation. Poetic creation is co-creation. Ortiz says, language is more than just a functional mechanism. It's a spiritual energy available to all. It includes all of us and is not exclusively in the power of human beings. You realize that you are part of it and it is part of you, and that you are not necessarily in control of it. If you do control some of it, it is not in your exclusive control. I think it's pretty clear implicitly that that the other in control is the symbol, is the collaborating bird, mountain, river. All these animals are survivors of genocides, and they're also the witnesses of them. The witnesses of human crimes against humans and human crimes against animals. When we know them as confirming witnesses, the way Ortiz knows the magpie, as fellow survivors, they can console us and support our own testimonies. When we feel anxious about them as potentially accusing witnesses, it gives us another driver for wiping them out, pushing them aside, keeping them quiet in the world and in our imaginative spaces. The usual kind of symbolism accomplishes, among other things, instrumentalization of the symbol, and the diffusion or denial of it as a being solid in its own sufficient significance, as a being signifying itself. Like a bird isn't real, or like anything else could be better than a bird. But I think the invitational animism Ortiz practices refuses to instrumentalize. I think it can lead to a speaking that's not separate from listening, that loves and acknowledges a bird for what it presents in itself, that allows us to speak to it and with it, and for it to speak to us about even the most difficult matters, even the most criminal histories, even the most insurmountable crimes. We'll finish with the first poem again.
I take him outside under the trees, have him stand on the ground. We listen to the crickets, cicadas, million years old sound. Ants come by us. I tell them, this is he, my son. This boy is looking at you. I am speaking for him. The crickets, cicadas, the ants, the millions of years are watching us. My son murmurs infant words, speaking. Small laughter bubbles from him. Tree leaves tremble. They listen to this boy, speaking for me.
Thanks.